governors, faculty members, friends, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third session of this year's annual Board of Governors meeting. My name is Naama Baron Shmilovich, and I'm a PhD candidate at the Department of Human Services. I hold LLB in Law and an MA in Human Services. My PhD, supervised by Dr. Orna Blumen and Professor Shai Tzafrir, offers an innovative way to look at a newly emerging research line that explores how pregnancy is experienced in the workplace by pregnant employees and their work partners, managers, and co-workers. It integrates insights from three bodies of social sciences research: body, time, and organization, as to understand how pregnancy affects practices. Behind its theoretical potential, my study bears potential for practical implications for state and organizational policymakers regarding the well-being of pregnant employees, effective management of diverse labor, and promoting gender equality in the work and in the broader society. We have a fascinating event ahead of us. We shall travel to the world of art, get to know an amazing and talented international student, and explore space to the point of touching the moon. Before we begin, I have the pleasure and honor of introducing a great friend and an avid supporter of the university, a patron of the arts, a woman whose faith in humanity is boundless. She is an honorary doctorate recipient from the university and the vice chair of the Board of Governors. I invite to the podium Dr. Tzili Charny.
Good afternoon, everybody. You're using the word doctor so easily here. Not so fast. So, before I present a little bit the speakers, I want to tell you a little bit about my views as a member of Board of Governors, what I think should be our job as Board of Governors, and how I see it in the work of the university. I'm an Israeli, but I live in New York, so I'm looking at the things in two faces, one face that looking outside and one face that looking inside. Very different faces, very big mission, but the same mission. The city of Haifa is not considered to be part of the north of Israel. Therefore, I see us, the university, as the gatekeepers. And I think that it's a very important job that we have for the university, for Israel, and for the north part of our country. I think we have an obligation, a social obligation, and we need to address the obligation of the social part. And I'm not mentioning anything about academia because I leave it to the academic people among you, and it's been covered well in the last day or two, and I'll just address the other parts. I think we need to make sure that the university can lead Israel in its most sensitive location to a well-being and a functioning society. This is the largest diverse social area of Israel, and I think it's our responsibility to help it and to support it. I'll talk a little bit about first the face that is looking out. In the fall, we're going to start a new program, the Charny Forum of the New Diplomacy. I invited Ambassador Ido Aharoni to chair the program. He was supposed to be here today and tell you about it a little bit. Unfortunately, he had a sudden trip that he had to follow, so he won't be here. The main idea behind the program is to address diplomacy at a time of technology and branding. And it's going to take the University of Haifa everywhere in the world. We make sure that the focus of the program won't be necessarily here in the university. I would like to take it as an ambassador for the university and address it in other places and meet with people outside of Israel and bring them to Israel or have a different discussion. This is about the diplomacy. Later on you'll hear something about the space with Daniel, about the project of Bereshit. I don't think Daniel knows that I have part of that. The human library, the backup of the civilization that was carried with Bereshit to the moon was sponsored by me. So this is a project that was made by Arch Mission and Nova Spivak in Los Angeles. And this is the gift basically that the Bereshit people gave to President Ruvi Rivlin. So it is on the moon now and it's mine. But when I say it's mine, not because it's mine, it's ours, but Haifa is there too. Because wherever I go, Haifa is there too. So I asked Ron to put together his favorite parts so we can send it in the next mission. And so Haifa can really be there and on Mars, and we do everything with NASA. So I'll leave Daniel to talk about the amazing, unbelievable project of Bereshit, but I just wanted to connect it with our outside face. Another outside thing that connects with the inside, and Charles will talk about his part when he comes. I have a center, a Toronto Resolution Center, where we do simulation talks between Israelis and the Palestinians teenagers. And on last February, we did the first one here in the university with students. And we're going to do it every year under the international students. They were part of it. They're going to be more part of it. And this is going to be as well an ambassador for Israel and for the university outside, and of course serving us Israelis and Palestinians inside. So I'll move to the inside part. We have a big face looking at inside, and we have to take care of our home. And I think that our speakers, Aya will speak later and Said will speak later. They have part of what I want to say, and they have part that is part of this building, the art building, the gorgeous art building. And we need the whole, the building is basically, present the cultural, social activity through the arts. And this is the part, as much as I support the art, I would like to pay attention more to the other part. This is what I really want to do, is to add programs that will support the emotional transition among students who come from very different cultural background and need a hand in growing into a different atmosphere in a safe, productive way. We need to help poor areas to move forward in a healthy way with mental and social work through arts, and we need to allow our diverse citizens to thrive, and it's our responsibility to make sure it takes place. Therefore, we need to help, and we, when I say we, it's the Board of Governors and the supporters of the university. I need to find a place because I don't want to make mistakes. We need to make sure it takes place. We need the help of the members of the board. Help us, and I encourage you to support our programs spirit-wise and money-wise, so we can fulfill our leadership and guidance and address the needs to be a fruitful, balanced society. This is something that I think that I don't know the connection of each one of you to the university. I have no doubt that you understand exactly where we're placed, and I know that you know how much we need help. And we need to run programs that are working, we need to initiate more programs, we need to prioritize, and we need to make it happen, because I think that the job of the University of Haifa in Israel is crucial, and I think we are the only one who are in the spot that can work towards many directions. One of the speakers today is Said Abu Shakra from the Al-Fahim Museum, which I'm on their board, and I really think that they should be part, and with the University of Haifa, I know they are connected already. They're the only Palestinian museum in Israel. I think it's a natural home for Palestinian artists, and they collaborate non-stop with Jewish artists as well. Said will tell you about the museum. He's the founder, the heart, the brain, everything. That's it basically. Enjoy the pieces, and we'll see you later.
Thank you, Dr. Charny. Our first speaker today, as mentioned by Dr. Charny, is Said Abu Shakra, director and founder of the Al-Fahim Art Gallery. He will share his inspiring vision with you in a talk titled Art for Social Change. Mr. Abu Shakra, please.
Thank you. First, I am very happy to be here for the invitation to speak and to tell you something about the gallery of Al-Fahim. But first of all, I would love to apologize about my English. It's not perfect, but I am very sure that you will understand me. I prefer to start before I speak with a very short film about the gallery, and after that I will start with the presentation and the explanation about the gallery. Thank you.
אז זה מקום שהוא חוצה גבולות, חוצה גיאוגרפיה, חוצה דת, חוצה מין וגזע, ולכן המשמעות שלו היא רבה וגדולה. מה שמייחד את הגלריה לאומנות באום-אל-פחם הוא בכך שהיא בעצם הפכה להיות סוכן לשינוי חברתי ותרבותי גם בתוך אום-אל-פחם וגם בתוך כל האוכלוסייה הפלסטינית בישראל.
הגלריה לאומנות אום-אל-פחם היא מקום מאוד מאוד מוכר בעולם האומנות, גם לכל מי ששוחר אומנות, גם מי שנמצא בתל אביב מכירים את המקום הזה, זה כמעט מוזיאון.
כשאני ייסדתי את הגלריה בשנת 96, אני עשיתי זאת מתוך אמונה גדולה בכוחה של האומנות לייצר שינוי חברתי.
מרמים פה בערך 12 תערוכות בשנה, כל אחת עם עבודות שאמן מכין במיוחד עבור התערוכה. מעבר לאמנות יש פה ימי עיון, יש פה שיחי גלריה, גם קבוצות שבאות להכיר את המקום כדי לראות איך אפשר לחבר בין אוכלוסייה יהודית ואוכלוסייה ערבית דרך דיאלוג על אמנות.
אני עליתי לארץ לפני 6 שנים, אחרי 40 שנה בניו יורק, ואחותי הכירה לי את סעיד. בשבילי זה עבודה עם משמעות, לעשות פה שלום ולהביא את האמנות, לקשר בין ערבים ויהודים, וזה מה שקורה פה.
אומנות וגלריה זה לא רק להציג יצירות אומנות. אומנות זה נקודת מפגש. ברגע שאתה מייצר נקודת מפגש עוצמתית בעוצמות הגדולות שהגלריה באום-אל-פחם מייצרת אותן, אז הופך להיות בעל עוצמה גם בשינוי שהוא מייחד לעצמו. ולכן אני יוזם מפגשים כל הזמן כאן. בתי ספר יהודים, בתי ספר ערבים, שאנחנו עובדים איתם מגיל מאוד צעיר כדי להביא אותם לכאן וכדי להתחיל לטפל בייצור השינוי הזה מגיל מאוד צעיר. אני חושב שלגלריה גם משמעות בחיי היום-יום שלנו, אבל גם יש לה משמעות בחיי העבר שלנו. ולכן כשאני מחבר את העבר והעתיד במקשה אחת, אני מייצר כאן חוויה תרבותית בלתי נשכחת. מאוד חשוב להראות שהמקום הזה נושם תרבות ולא רק פוליטיקה כל הזמן.
הגלריה הזאת יותר זה מקום מאוד מאוד נחשב למי שבעולם האמנות, אבל יותר משזה מקום נחשב, זה מקום באמת באמת חשוב. זה מקום שמחפש לקיים דיאלוג גם עם הקהילה המקומית, לחבר קהילה שבסופו של דבר לא מכירה כל כך מה זו אמנות עכשווית. עשינו בקיץ פרויקט של שיפור שכונה פה, שכונת אל-מידאן, שזו שכונה שעומדת מוזנחת פה כבר 20 שנה. חיברנו זוג אמנים אמריקאים לקבוצה של אמנים יהודים וערבים מקומיים, ישראלים, שבאו ועבדו עם נוער מקומי ויצרו ציור קיר על חזיתות של כל הבתי עסק שם. בגלל זה אני פה.
החלום שלי הוא להקים את המוזיאון הערבי הראשון בישראל. והתפקיד של הגלריה והמוזיאון העתידי הוא להגדיל את כמות המבקרים. במקום 30,000 איש בשנה יבואו 100,000 איש, וההשפעה תהיה הרבה יותר גדולה. אינשאללה.
I want to start with the production of the history of Al-Fahim. And after that to continue with the gallery and our vision to be museum and what the goals and the aims of the museum. This is Al-Fahim before 800 years ago. The first people came to Al-Fahim before many years ago, and they started to create the charcoal because they cut the trees and create the charcoals, and Al-Fahim became, the name Al-Fahim came from the charcoal that they created because there was no electricity and the people used the charcoal for the life every day. And after that, people started to work with agriculture, with the lands, and to use the lands before the Israeli establishment. And around the land, the working of the land, they empower and they improve their culture, their handmade, everything around that. The Palestinian culture was very, very strong, like embroidery, like ceramics, like carpets, like everything, because the land was the enter of our life, and the culture was around the land. This is the same thing here. And after that, when Israel establishment, most of the Al-Fahim became to be workers in Tel Aviv. They moved from the lands to the very difficult work. And most of the people, not most of, all of the people moved from their old village, and they lost all the villages, and they moved to Al-Fahim. Some of them became to be refugees over all the world, and who stayed in Al-Fahim started to be workers in Al-Fahim, and they leave Al-Fahim till this day. They leave Al-Fahim very early in the morning, and they come back very late in the evening. This is Al-Fahim today, and this is the border between Al-Fahim and the West Bank. We became to be inside Israel, but one step before the border, and it's mean for me a lot of things. It's to be on the seam all the time. To be on the seam all the time, it's physically and spiritually. Physically, to be here in Israel, but we can't contact our people, our narratives, in our people in the another side, and only one step separate between us. Before that, all this area was one area. The people from all the sides were the same family, and now the border separate between people. Spiritually, it's to be Israeli and to be Palestinian at the same time. It's so very difficult in this day to be both of them, because the crisis between the Arab and the Jewish happen all the time, every day and every night And every morning, we know another bad news between the Palestinians and the Jewish. For that, I have to deal all the time between being all the time 100% Palestinian and 100% Israeli. How to do that, I don't know, but we continue doing that all the time, all my life till this minute. This is the inside the gallery that the spaces and other things. And I would love to tell you something about my process. I came to the gallery before 25 years ago. And I knew in this time that my future in my hands, because the budget of the government was very little all the time. There's still being very little this time. And I decided that if I want to blame and to accuse, they will still bad more in the future. My solution is to take responsibility and to take my decision to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I have to take the responsibility and to start to work. And I decided to work. And I opened the gallery because I thought that my people in Al-Fahim and my community, the Palestinian community in Israel, they need house, they need home for art. I can't all the time be in Tel Aviv. Sometimes they come to take me to show the works in Tel Aviv. But I didn't do nothing for myself. Because after the Nakba, after the Palestinian catastrophe, the Palestinian people inside Israel, their worry was how to survive their days, how to survive their physical life. But nothing happened with art. And the budget of Israel was very little. And after that, all the time, our worries was how to survive and to work. With big families and other things. And for that, I established the gallery. The gallery came to give solution for our culture, to give the solution for artists, to give the solution for a lot of things around. And another thing that, the culture, the Palestinian culture that was very strong before Israel's establishment, destroyed after that. Because all the villages left before, and the people became to be refugees, and all the workshop became to be nothing after that. And 70 years after that, we became to be, a lot of artists inside Israel, a lot of people who work with theater, but we have no places to document and to show our art. And for that, the gallery came with these spaces, and we started with that before 25 years ago. 2 years after that, we invited Yoko Ono for solo exhibition in the gallery, and it was a special event for us. Why? Because the gallery became to be very important for the community, and it took the gallery very high level, international, and we have to keep our level in the future after that. And Yoko Ono left Al-Fahim, and we started to work how to keep and to preserve our history, and to connect the community for our gallery. It is not easy, because when I say the gallery in Al-Fahim, I say it's become in spite of, not because of, because we have all the difficulties and we have all the conflicts inside Al-Fahim. Like I am very sorry by my English, but this is the situation. But when I say in spite of, it's because the religion in the Islam say, like the Jewish, don't create masks and sculptures. and we have to work with masks and sculpture all the time. And in Al-Fahim we have community, very poor community, and we have very rich community. We have people who belong to the West side and who belong to the modern side. A lot of conflicts in Al-Fahim, and it's the conflicts of in all the Palestinian community inside Israel. When we established the gallery here, we knew that we have to connect all the conflicts together. And we can't connect all the conflicts together if we will not do something to connect the community to the art, to our gallery. It was very difficult, but now, when we started with that, now the situation is different. People come to the gallery all the time. We work with kids, we work with women, and we collaborate with children and Jewish artists and Arab artists, and we establish here the workshop of ceramics that women can come to the gallery and work together. And for that, I think that this is the place to connect the community and to empower them and to take them ahead. Our face is to establish our future museum that you saw before. The museum will be in our city, in the entrance of Al-Fahim, and it will be a huge place that can give the image of Al-Fahim, of peace and of professionality and work, and that's all. I don't want, this is the fact, you saw the film here, but because my English, I think that this is the level that I can explain myself, and I am very sorry for that, this is my ability to explain myself in English. If you have questions, I will be happy to answer. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abu Shakra, for sharing this with us. And we want to congratulate you for receiving the Shulamit Aloni Award. And now we shall journey to space with Bereshit. Maurice Kahan, a man instrumental in making Bereshit a reality, is also a dear friend of the University of Haifa. Through the Kahan Foundation, Mr. Kahan's support has been invaluable, specifically in the marine sciences. His influence is so far-reaching that it begins at the greatest depth overseas and reaches the stars. Now, to tell us a little about the journey to the moon, I have a great pleasure of welcoming engineer Daniela Garon, who is the ground segment system engineer at SpaceIL and part of Bereshit crew.
Hello, hello all, and thank you for having me here. My name is Daniela Gairon. I am the ground segment system engineer at SpaceIL, and I will give you a very short version of the story of the first Israeli journey to the moon. So how it all started? It started with an international competition, the Google Lunar X Prize competition, which raised a challenge, international challenge to private teams around the world to achieve something that was achieved before only by governments, and that was to land a spacecraft on the moon. 3 young Israeli engineers, Yariv Bash, Jonathan Weintraub, and Kfir Damari, thought that it's time for Israel to land a spacecraft on the moon, and raised the required money and registered for the competition. Of course, according to Israeli tradition, during the last day. And this is how SpaceIL was founded. SpaceIL was founded as a non-profit organization with 2 main goals. The engineering and scientific mission that was to land a spacecraft on the moon and gather some scientific data there, and the educational goal that was to encourage young people to study science, technology, engineering, and math. So here we come to the first phase of any engineering project, and this is the design phase. The design phase is a very interesting phase because you learn a lot, but you also discover that you need to meet a lot of challenges and you need to adapt. And every mission that wants to send a spacecraft to the moon has a lot of challenges, and those are the 5 main challenges: launch, tracking and communication, withstanding the journey, trajectory planning, and of course, the main challenge is landing. So, as you can see here, the design was changed a few times during the design phase. They started with a spacecraft the size of a cola bottle, a 3U spacecraft, and then they moved to a little bit bigger spacecraft, and then SpaceIL has finally arrived to the final configuration, and that was the final configuration of the project, which was roughly 4.5 years ago. The final configuration of the project, as you can see here, is divided in 3 parts, like everything else in life. There was the launch part, the space segment, and the ground segment. Some details about each of the 3 parts. The launch was performed by the SpaceX company. It was a shared launch on the Falcon 9 rocket together with an Indonesian satellite, communication satellite, and an US experimental satellite. Now to the space segment, the spacecraft. This is the final diagram of Bereshit. It was one of the smallest spacecrafts that reached the moon. You can see here the mass was 580 kilos. Most of the mass and most of the volume was taken by the fuel and oxidizer tank. You can see them here. The diameter with stowed legs was less than 1.5 meters, and with deployed length less than 2.3 meters, and the height 1.535 meters, which is less than me, but you cannot see it here because the spacecraft is standing on a pedestal like it was always standing during flight. And finally, to my favorite segment, the ground segment. For having a successful mission to the moon, you need not only to build a functional spacecraft, but you also need a functional ground segment to support it from ground. So you need a ground control center, a mission operations center. We had this center in Yehud at the IAI facilities. And we had additional ground stations spread around the world. From our nominal ground station provider, Swedish Space Corporation, we had stations in Hawaii, Santiago, Kiruna, Germany, Hartebestok, Dongara, and Yataraga in Australia. And we had 3 additional ground stations as a bonus during lunar orbit insertion and during landing from NASA, California, Madrid, and Canberra, Australia, that we received as a bonus from our cooperation with NASA that was signed last year. And of course, the most important part of any project, the team. You can see here most of the engineering team. The people that are facing the cameras are SpaceIL members. The people that are not are IAI, Israel Aerospace Industries members. And this was, as was mentioned in the previous slide, a partnership between SpaceIL and the Israel Aerospace Industries, which was only a natural partner for a national project like SpaceIL. And also you can see here part of the educational team, which consisted mostly of volunteers. We had roughly around 150 volunteers. You cannot see them all here. And of course, Maurice Kahn, which you mentioned before, which was not only the main donor, but he was also the main engine behind the project. And he was the one that when in 2018 the GRXP competition was canceled because it was extended a few times and the competition ended with no winners. He was the one that decided that this national project should be continued in order to fulfill the two goals that I mentioned in the beginning. So after finishing the design phase, we entered the assembly, integration, and testing phase. Again, 3 parts, roughly from 2015 to 2019. Of course, the space segment is much more photogenic than the ground segment, so we have a lot of pictures and movies of the space segment, assembly, integration, and testing. Just a minute. How do I do it? You can see here the beginning. Till the final phase, taking the spacecraft in order to send it to the Cape Canaveral. We have here landing gear testing, vibration testing. That was to check that the spacecraft can withstand the launch, the vibration inside the rocket. We have here thermal, vacuum, and balance sensing and communication testing in a non-echoic chamber. All of those tests were performed in IAI facilities, besides the landing gear test that was performed in a special German facilities that simulated the lunar surface. And now, to my favorite part, the ground segment. The ground segment consisted of the ground control center in Yehud. We had to establish the ground control center based on existing facilities, but we had to do a lot of adaptation to our mission. As you know, IAI didn't send the spacecraft to the moon before. So all the facilities had to be adapted. New interfaces had to be defined and checked. We used 3 main ground software systems, spacecraft command and control for the actual communication with the spacecraft, flight dynamic system for orbit determination and trajectory planning, and of course, like any other space project, a simulator that simulated the spacecraft and the space environment for testing and for mission training. The last 2 were based on commercial software. The first one was based on IAI software, but as I said, a lot of adaptations were performed until we reached this. You can see here the Mission Operations Center and another facilities of verification and validation. It took a lot of time and a lot of testing so we could have this final Mission Operations Center. And of course, we had a lot of testing with the ground stations, the ground station that I mentioned before. For every ground station that was part of the ground station network, we had this list of tests, starting with voice and connectivity tests and ending with a full dress rehearsal before the launch. You can see here a screenshot that was personally for me very exciting, because this was the first time that we received telemetry data from a ground station. This was during the assembly, integration, and testing phase. And I was so excited that I took this screenshot and sent it to all the people, all the Space IL team in our WhatsApp group. So After all the possible testing was performed, and if there are any engineers here, you know that I'm joking, because never anyone in an engineering project can do all the possible tests, especially not failure scenarios. You can define a list of limited tests that you decide that are enough, and this is what we did. We defined a list of tests, and we did them all. We performed them all before the mission, and we did a lot of training for the mission. And this is how we got to the fun phase, the mission. Actually, it started with a very stressful stage, but one that went really smoothly, the launch. The launch from the Mission Operations Center. I am here. So this is how the spacecraft was launched, and after the expected interval between the launch and the separation, we were very stressed, but as I said before, it went very smoothly, and we got the first telemetry from the spacecraft. You can see it here. And after a few analyses by the experts that were part of the team, our mission director declared the spacecraft is okay. We can reach the moon. So what we did was continuing with our trajectory. Actually, you don't see the orbits here. Somehow the transfer vanished, vanished the orbit. So this was the trajectory of the spacecraft. Some orbits around the Earth, and then we transited to orbits around the Moon. We performed maneuvers around Earth and maneuvers around the Moon. Luckily, I have a simulation of the trajectory, so you can see it. So from launch, from Space Canaveral, we started with a trajectory that was around 200 kilometers by 70,000 kilometers. We performed some maneuvers at the closest point to Earth, the perigee, in order to raise our apogee here, to finally reach the final orbit around the Earth in order to meet the Moon and to transit from Earth orbit to lunar orbit. This specific maneuver was the most crucial of the maneuvers because it was a very complex one, and if it would have failed, then the whole mission would have failed. Additional maneuvers were performed around the Moon, this time not to increase the orbit, but to decrease the orbit around the Moon until reaching the final orbit before landing, which was roughly 15 kilometers by 200 kilometers around the Moon. So, I said that the mission was the fun part. It was the fun part, but it was not the easy part. If we thought that the assembly, integration, and testing part was hard, then during the mission, sleeping was a luxury. Because we had we had many challenges to deal with during the mission. We had star trackers, one of the components of the spacecraft. We had star tracker, unexpected behavior. We had repeated mission computers caused by various reasons. One of them was radiation. We had orbit determination difficulties. That was the reason that we spent a lot of hours in the flight dynamic room in order to deal with, and additional spacecraft and ground issues that needed constant handling. But, however, we also had some very enjoyable moments. and you can see them here. Every time we downloaded this kind of image from the spacecraft, we took a deep breath and we said it was all worth it, and we'll continue until we reach the moon. Here are additional images. You can see here the image that was taken by Bereshit and an image that was taken by a weather satellite, and you can see the similarity between them. And also a beautiful picture of Earth from Bereshit. Lunar orbit insertion, as I mentioned before, the most crucial maneuver of transiting between the Earth orbit and the lunar orbit, went perfectly. And a very interesting fact, especially for the space geeks, was the amount of the ground antennas that were used during this specific maneuver. We had 2 antenna tracking from Germany, from SSC antennas. We had an additional antenna tracking from Santiago, an additional antenna on standby, and 2 antennas from NASA, one from Madrid and one from Goldstone. But there were some minutes of antenna switching. At NASA, which we had 4 antennas tracking the spacecraft from NASA, so a total of 7 tracking antennas and an additional standby antenna, which is a very unusual amount of ground antennas tracking a spacecraft, any spacecraft. So here you can see our happy faces after the perfect performance of the lunar orbit insertion. So after the lunar orbit insertion, enough with the Earth images, we switched to moon images. And this was not only exciting, it was wow. It was exhilarating. You can see here pictures taken from the lunar orbit. Here is Earth, distant Earth, the moon. And here is the last image that was taken from the lunar orbit. It's from the closest point in the orbit to the moon, which was 15 kilometers. So finally, after all these exhilarating moments, we got to the crucial moment, the crucial day, the landing. And here you can see a simulation of how the landing was supposed to be performed. We were supposed to descend from the lunar orbit, reaching a certain altitude, 1 kilometer, and then switch to vertical descent. And for the last 5 meters, the engines were supposed to be shut down and to free fall on the lunar surface. But, and this, the planned landing site was Mare Serenitatis, located here. But as you know, life had other plans for us, and the landing didn't go exactly according to the plan. Actually, it started very good. This was the telemetry received for almost 10 minutes, 10 smooth minutes. The engines worked, the velocity was decreased as expected, the control system worked perfectly. And then, to a very special and exciting moment, we got the victory selfie from the spacecraft. And this was seeing the Israeli flag with the moon surface in the background was really, really exciting for us. And you can see all the happy faces here. But then, something went wrong. We had an inertial measurement unit failure, and this failure caused a chain of events which included mission computer reset, and this caused a main engine shutdown. And what happened is that we reached the moon a little bit too fast than planned. You can see here the last data received from the spacecraft. 946.7 horizontal velocity and 134.3 vertical velocity. This was the last image that we received during landing. So, when you reach the moon with this kind of velocity, you leave a great impact. And if you don't see it very clear here, you can see it more clear here. These were images taken by the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, a NASA satellite that orbits the moon even right now. And we gave them our analysis for the landing, for the unsuccessful landing, and they took a picture. And you can see here the big impact that Bereshit left on the moon. So after mourning a little bit about the 0.5 unsuccessful part of the mission, and another great success is that the impact site was only 13.4 kilometers away from the plant site. So after mourning a little bit about the engineering part, we took some time to enjoy the huge educational impact that Bereshit had on Israeli kids and even all over the world. You can see here kids getting very interested in the mission, sending us drawings, wishing us success, even dressing as Bereshit during Purim. You know that you're a great success when someone dresses as your product during Purim. And there were a lot of costumes. And you can see here a lot of kids tracking the mission, tracking the launch, the lunar orbit insertion, the landing. And finally, they wrote our songs, and they even offered us their pocket money for our next mission so we can do it better the next time. Besides the educational impact, there was an additional impact, which is, of course, my favorite one as a space geek. This was the international impact. We received a lot of messages from all the space community. We received tweets from Charles Bolden, which is the former administrator, which is the former NASA administrator. We received messages from Buzz Aldrin that I don't think is, I think that you know him. It's the second man that stepped on the moon. We received a lot of tweets from Jim Bridenstine, the present NASA administrator, and additional hundreds of messages from the space community. Hundreds of international publications in US, Europe, Japan, Argentina. And why? Why all of this? Because we were the first private mission that almost landed on the moon. And although it wasn't successful until the end, this was a huge step towards affordable space exploration. So, of course, we are expecting it next time to do it softly.
Thank you for sharing this unbelievable journey with us. We are very fortunate to have with us today Professor Aya Ben-Ron of the Department of Fine Arts, a versatile and multidisciplinary artist who was chosen to represent Israel in the 58th International Venice Art Biennale. Today, she will give us a small glimpse of her exhibit, Field Hospital X. Professor Ben-Ron, the podium is yours.
Okay. Hi, everybody, and thank you for inviting me here. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Tzili. I will tell you a little bit about this project. Its name is Field Hospital X. I will tell you a little bit why I created it, and then we will go through the facilities for a short glimpse into the hospital and how it works. And then I will talk about its future plan. So, it gives you a short glimpse into the process of the hospital. I will explain it later. But this is the reception area, the reception desk. After that, you go to the second floor. There is the first facility, which I called safe unit. And after the safe unit, after you spend 3 minutes in the safe unit, you go upstairs to the care chair area. We'll see it in a minute. This hospital is not an exhibition, it's not a performance, it's not an installation. It is a real hospital for social ills. It doesn't treat the body. Okay. It's a real hospital for social ills. It doesn't treat the body, but I realized through working on it that many social ills do deal with the body. So in the end, there is a lot about the body, but the hospital itself, definition, is a place where silenced voices can be heard and social injustices can be seen. The hospital is called field hospital because it is mobile. It is mobile. It is an international hospital, even though the crew that work on it is Israeli. We are planning to develop to other countries. And its launching was at the Venice Biennale at the Israeli Pavilion. So I'll tell you a personal story why I created it very shortly. In the year 2017, I made a film which I called Nobody. It tells my story, my personal story about abuse in the family. I created it as an animation film on top of video. And there is a text, voiceover text, which I wrote, and a poem, a song, which I wrote the words, and the two musicians I'm working with wrote the music. And it tells my story in my own term. And I created it because I thought, after being silenced for many, many years, that it's important to use the tools of art, if I can, in order to discuss this issue maybe differently from what society offers. Because society offers like courts or police or social networks, and none of that was a real place for me to speak. So I created this film, and then I tried to show it. I offered it to film festivals and to museums, and none of them accepted this film. And it was really strange because I was not in the beginning of my career, and still this piece was rejected. And too many times for me to just say, well, maybe it's not good or not, I don't know. And I started thinking about the reason, and I thought maybe because it raised this issue, again, people find it really difficult to deal with it, and it is somehow got rejected, even subconsciously. So after 2 years of this kind of rejections, instead of being depressed, I thought maybe I will create by myself the context, the right context and place for showing this film, in the conditions that I want people to watch it, which is one-on-one, with personal, not like in a theater, not like in a gallery when you just pass by the film and then glimpse like 2 minutes, edit and move on. I didn't want that. I thought I want people to care and to really listen. If I speak, I want them to listen. And I'm telling you all this because this is the base for the hospital, and this set of rules are the set of rules of the hospital. After I created formulate the set of rules in which I want the hospital to work, I invited other artists, or it doesn't necessarily need to be artists, it can be any type of create, like documentaries, filmmakers, to create pieces of their own about other issues. So right now, the hospital deals with abuse in the family, one subject, which is mine, with the occupation, which an anonymous Palestinian artist, I invited him to create a film. He's anonymous because he's in danger, actually, if people will know who he is. There is a film by transgender about anti-transgender violence. And there is a film about racism, which deals with the story of the Yemen kids in Israel, the kidnap of Yemen kids. So I will go now. This project involved 120 people. For research, we invest a lot in research, how field hospitals works. For example, I went with the IDF field hospital to Romania to an exercise, which every country in Europe sent their field hospital. It was really exciting to see how they operate. And I met many other people in Israel who deals with disasters and simulation of disaster to design the experience. But also, we collaborate with academics, and we have thinking groups in Van Leer Institute and other places. Okay, the reception area. I will go through the hospital and will give you a sense of the experience. You take a queue and you wait. Like in every place, we have only 12 beds right now, so you wait a lot. And while you're waiting, go on. Yeah. This is the opening. We had many, many people. Right now we have like almost 400 people who go through the process, and another 600 who are staying in the reception area because they don't have time to wait. So they just experience the reception area. In the reception area, there is the staff. You meet staff. We have girls that are taking you around, like helping, like nurses, but they are not nurses. They are speaking a protocol, and they kind of lead you through the facilities. And they will always be local because the hospital is going to travel to different countries. The staff will always be local, and I will train them. So we have a protocol that kind of follow the rules of the hospital. So they are very kind and polite, but very strict at the same time. There is a TV program. Okay. And the TV program is actually what you see in the reception area. You don't need to go to the other areas if you don't have time or don't want to do that. You can just sit there and watch a TV program, which is made of short clips that explain the ideology of the hospital and the process. So I'll show you 1 minute from the theme song from my film. It's not my film. My film looks different. We went. You can do the play. We went to a clinic of vocal cords, and I asked my singer from the video to sing the song while we shooting the vocal cord.
Once there was a little girl, her father chopped her hands off. He had no other choice. The devil forced him, of course. In fairy tales, that's how it goes. The world was still. Do with me what you will. She stretched forth The father was sorry. Please don't worry. I will take care of you as long as you live.
Okay, this is there is a development in the story, of course. Because the hospital is about silenced voices, so we checked a lot the subject of voice. We checked it physically, like going and see how it works, but also in terms of psychology, many aspects. It's layered, that's why I cannot just say, it comes with the experience in the hospital, and I will show it to you later, another bit. We have, for the hospital, we have a presenter. She's Victoria Hanna, maybe you know her. She's a voice artist, and she's stammering herself. Stammering? And she really cares about words. So she's the presenter of the hospital, and you see her on the screens only. And I want to show you another bit from the TV program downstairs, because it's explained the ideology of the hospital, and it's also made the kind of natural selection between people who has patient and want to be patients to people who doesn't, which is fine. It's just that they don't need to, they can live. It's not for everyone in the way that you really need to spend time there in order to listen. And she explained it.
You are now in Field Hospital X. Field Hospital X is here to care.
Okay.
That
was the problem in the beginning, that there is no sync from some reasons, and I don't know why, so you will have to watch it this way, just for a bit, but imagine that the voice is with, I don't know why it happened.
Care? Do you care? Do you care? Field Hospital X cares for those who have been silenced. Silenced by others, silenced by themselves. Those who have been silenced by seemingly benign voices for a very long time. Do you care? Field Hospital X cares for you. You are now in the reception area. Upon entering, take a queue number.
I didn't like it this way, but that's what we got for today. She's talking, the main words or leading words that we used in the reception area is choice and care. People can choose if they want to continue. They can choose to leave at any time. And they need to care in a way in order to go to the second stage. So I won't go into all the details, but there is a way they select which social ill they want to deal with, and then they go upstairs to the safe unit area. These are three cells, which the inspiration for them was from mental houses, like the safe rooms for patients. It's with mattresses on the wall, so you cannot harm yourself inside, but it's also soundproof. It's like a personal bunker, and it's very safe. There are no cameras, and there is sound instructions of how to produce a self-contained shout, which is another thing that we wanted to focus. It's how somebody managed to shout or not. Because I, for example, find it really difficult to shout there. Lots of other people shout really loudly and enjoy it, but in any case, if you go into this chamber, listen to the instruction, you go through a physical or emotional experience, whether if you shout or not, because the frustration of not shouting can also be a very important experience before you continue to the third floor. So I have a sample here. This is the research part.
אוקיי, אז אנחנו מטפסים קצת ונשארים על הגבוה ומחזיקים את הרצוע הזה.
This is a special way to create a shout without damaging your vocal cords, and it's supposed to, if you know how to do that, you can give a really effective shout, whether if you need help or just as a release. And we learned it for half a year, and me and the curator, and we were not that successful. But we got from that the instruction for these safe units from these lessons. This is a visitor doing it. They send us the video play. The music is not from me, it's from a TV program. No sync again. So people are really doing it, and they shoot themselves. And it's nice. So after you do this, you continue to the next stage. This is the hospital care chairs. I designed it especially for the viewing of the social ills, and it is inspired by gynecologist chair and dentist chair. So the idea was they are very comfortable, but at the same time, weird. The feeling is strange because you can feel the dentist and the gynecologist, but still it's very relaxing because you have the pillow and everything. So this is the chair, and each chair has a screen and a remote control and headphones. So when you sit there, you are completely focused on what is on the screen in front of you, and then you see a video. You watch a video about social ill, and you have to see it and to listen. If you don't want, you can just walk away. But if you are on the chair, you are with the person who tells you something, and this is the special conditions I wanted to create, and it's working. People are sitting there and listening very carefully to the stories. Each one choose different story. It's not like you choose it downstairs. And here. This is the atmosphere. So the sound is from downstairs, and people on the top floor sit and really watch the films. At the end, we call it care kits, and care kits include an introduction that Victoria Hanna is giving, which is it's really important because it puts things on the table. It says very clearly you are going to watch a film by Aya Ben-Ron about abuse in the family. So it doesn't let like other pieces of art that maybe keeps the viewer in a position that he can decide what the piece is about. So Victoria Hanna makes sure, the presenter makes sure that the visitors knows what they are looking at. And then you watch the film, and after you finish the film, because the films are not easy, so we have the second opinion part. That's why you need the remote control. You can listen to another opinion of people that we chose. It's part of the team of the hospital. There are academics, professional people that talks, for example, about my film. There's a gynecologist who opened a shelter for girls. She speaks about the phenomenon, and also a lawyer. And education people speak. So you can, if you feel that the film was too difficult and you also have your opinion, you can stay a little bit and listen to other opinions. So this is the process. And at the end of it, you get this support wristband that it says, "Here anyone can live free," which is the slogan of the hospital, which creates a bit of problems in the Israeli pavilion right now in Venice. But we deal with it, we knew about it, we expected it, and it's part of the conversation of what the hospital wants to speak about. But this sentence is taken from my film, from the song that you heard. It's the last sentence in the song. So our future plans, right now it will be for 6 months in Venice, and as I said, around 1,000 people are visiting it every day, spending time in the reception area, and 400 go through the process of one of the social, which is fantastic. We didn't expect this hospital to be full from morning till evening, 12 beds full all the time. So we are happy with that. We are also start to work on the next location, because it's a field hospital. It's a field hospital, so of course it's supposed to travel from Venice to other places, and in the next, each place it arrives, it's supposed to create new care kit to invite artists or filmmakers from the country they arrive to talk about a social illness. It can be local, it can be universal. The idea of this social ills is that we are looking at it through personal stories, which we believe that talks about about society, but it's always a personal story. And another thing we are working on is developing a center for research and development of other facilities, which I'm already thinking about, and collaboration, of course, with other universities, academics, and people as the thinking groups and second opinion people, and of course, other people who create and have ideas for how to develop this hospital. So, the care kits, I will show you a bit from the care kits right now, that we have now, before. Okay, so we are out of time. So we have a website which have all the information about the hospital and lots of press that have been published in the last months. That's it. I hope you go in and see some more about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ben-Ron. Our next speaker is an inspiring young man from Birmingham, Alabama. He's a Fulbright scholar and international graduate student at the university's prestigious National Security Program. Friends, please welcome Charles Coleman for the talk titled The Power of Dreams.
Thank you, thank you. I'm actually honored and privileged to have a moment to speak with you all today about why I decided to study here in Israel, specifically at the University of Haifa. And it's directly related to my topic today, the power of dreams. You know, inspiration, it comes to us from the unlikeliest of sources sometimes. What I'd like for you all to do, if you would, indulge me for a moment. I'd like for you to close your eyes for a second. And I'd like for you to get a picture in your mind of Haifa Bay from the university. Okay? I see this view every week when I come to the university. And every time I see it, it takes me back to a story that I heard about when I was a kid, about a man named Theodore Herzl, who in 1897, he wrote in his diary that on this day, we established the State of Israel. This was after the First Zionist Congress. Okay? And he said in this notation that if he would have said this out loud, people would have laughed at it. But in 5 years, they'll believe it. And in 50 years, they'll know it. Now, 20 years later, we had the Balfour Declaration. And 50 years later, his dream was actually realized with the establishment of the State of Israel. And as we sit here today, you guys can open your eyes. As you sit here today, I want you to realize that you all, each of us, is a realization. We are the realization of that dream. And me, myself, I am living proof that what you all do with the Board of Governors, it actually matters. Because without you all, I wouldn't be standing here today. So first, I'd like to say thank you, first and foremost, and talk to you a little bit about why I came here. You know, Israel is arguably the most important country in the world in terms of politics, in terms of history, in terms of security, in terms of religion. And I couldn't imagine a better place to study national security. I had the opportunity to attend a number of Ivy League schools in the U.S., and I'm asked all the time, why would you turn that opportunity down to study here in Israel? Okay? So this speaks to my upbringing and where I come from. In America, we roughly have about 340 million people. Okay? Blacks, or African Americans, we make up about 14% of that population. Okay? Now, of that 340 million people, 25% of those grew up in single-parent homes. Okay? If you break that demographic down and you look at just the black community, 70% of us grow up in single-parent homes. Okay? So understanding this and understanding that even though we only make up 14% of the population, 13, 14% of the population, we represent 50% of the prison population. So for me, growing up in a small town right outside of Birmingham, Alabama, I was born into an existence where I was destined to fail. Every obstacle that you can imagine, I hit along the way. My family was the epitome of the antithesis of the American dream. You all are familiar with the American dream, right? Now, if you ask 100 people, they'll describe this 100 different ways. You know? But the essence of the American dream is that you can, even an immigrant, you can come to America, you can start with nothing, and you can become a success. Right? But then how do you define success? What does that mean? Right? For one person, success may mean family, it may mean loved ones, it may mean children. For someone else, that may mean riches. Growing up in our community, this culminated into one thing, cash, make money. And growing up, seeing the poverty that had stricken our community, seeing things like the murder rate. In Birmingham, we have one of the worst murder rates in the country. It actually rivals Chicago and New York. For every 100,000 citizens, we have a murder rate of about 55, 56 people every year. So in a small town of Birmingham, which is only about 214,000 people, last year we had about 116 murders. Most of those were young, black, African-American males. They were on the search for riches, money, drugs. You fall into these traps along the way. And I remember as a kid, I was about 16 years old, and I was just finishing the 10th grade. And that summer, I lost 8 of my closest personal friends to violence. They were all murdered. And I remember my mom started taking me with her to work during the summer times because she didn't want me to be at home where that element was, okay? Well, one day, I remember I was sitting, she'd asked me to help some of the other students at the nonprofit organization in which she worked. She asked me to help them with some of their homework, some of the younger students. And I went in and I started talking to them about the sociological theory that we had just heard about acting white. And are you guys familiar with this theory, the acting white theory? So in sociology, they talk about how blacks typically perform at a lower level on standardized testing because they don't want to appear to be acting white. So this is one reason why, if you look at it, in Birmingham, we have a graduation rate of about 58%. Right? So students don't want to appear to be acting white, so they have to keep it real, as we say. And you want to make sure that your reputation and your respect in the community is intact. Because this, of course, is the most important thing when you come from a culture of poverty. It's all about your reputation. So as we're sitting and we're talking about this, one of the members of the board of directors had come in and he overheard the conversation. And he pulled my mom to the side and he asked who I was. And she said, well, that's my son. And he said, well, I'd like to meet him. Well, after a few minutes of talking to him, he said, I really like you, and I like the way you think, and I like the way you talk. I see something really special in you. Would you be interested in the job? And at the time, I had just gotten a job at McDonald's. I was making about $4.25 an hour. Okay, I was killing it, right? And I said, well, I have a job. And he said, well, would you like a better job? And I said, well, define better. What do you mean by better? Well, he said, I'd pay you $12 an hour. I said, okay, that's better. That's a no-brainer. So he gave me his business card and he asked me to show up on Monday morning. So I said, well, Monday, I've got school. I can come right after school. And he said, okay, that's fine. So we set an appointment and I was going to be at his office around 4:30 that afternoon. Well, when I walked in, there was a young lady sitting behind a desk. It was on the 8th floor of this building. And just behind her, there was this huge sign on the wall that said, Masada. I thought that's odd. What is Masada? What is this? And when I walked in, she said, you must be Charles. And again, you got to remember, I'm a 16-year-old kid, from the inner city. The fact that this woman knows my name when I walk into the room, this was really special for me, okay? So she said, Mr. Johnson is expecting you. Why don't you go ahead and have a seat in his office and he'll be with you in a few minutes. So I go down the hall and I sit in his office, and on the wall, there's a huge sign, huge, and it's a picture, a photograph, and it covered the entire wall, and it was of this huge mountain. And at the bottom, it said, Masada. What is this? I don't understand. Is this a cult? Like, what am I entering into here? What type of job am I about to take? So he comes in and, he's really fidgety and he's like, I'm so glad, you're able to come. I want you to enter the organization and work with us. They did sustainable development, and another aspect of the company was alarm systems like ADT or Security Link from Ameritech, home security systems. So, but he also owned cable companies, and he started going through just a list of all of the businesses that he owned, and I knew nothing about this gentleman. And I said, okay, wait a minute, stop for a second. What is Masada? What is this? So he took a few moments and he started explaining to me the story about 70 AD, how a group of Jewish, I guess if we want to call them rebels at the time, they went down to the desert and they holed up in one of Herod's old castles. And they had this commitment. Again, there's a lot of, differences in stories. Some people say this, some people say that, but the essence of the story that he wanted to communicate to me was that these people had a commitment to purpose, and their purpose was so strong within them that they were not going to be denied, and nothing was going to stop them from reaching their goal. But for him, his idea was that if you have a commitment, if you have a dream, if you have a purpose, you have to commit yourself to it in every possible way. And this translated into me into an idea of dreams. What, for me, could be my biggest dream? And it was to change myself and to change my environment and to change the way that people looked at people like me. This is a laughable goal. How do you change the way someone looks at you? How do you change their perception of you? I can remember the first time I actually came to Israel. My roommate and I had gone down to the Carmel Center, and we were eating ice cream. And a gentleman walked in, and he saw me, and he said, "Oh, wow, what team do you play for?" Wow, really? Do I look like I play anything? But it was, for me, I wanted to use this as an opportunity to share my story. And I said, no, I'm actually studying here at the university. And his eyes got really big, and he was like, wow, I never knew that was a thing. And it made me realize that what he meant was he had never seen someone like me traveling outside of the entertainment or sports arena, especially when it comes to academia. This is something that is not commonly done. And it spoke to how special that was. And from that point on, I knew it was my mission to help just change a little bit of the perception that people may have for folks like me. So how did I get here? Because at 16, I'm working, I finished high school, I decided to go off to college for the first time, but I didn't have a lot of money, and I was going to have to pay for it myself. The little school that I went to was in South Carolina. It was a small Christian school, and they didn't take any grants from the government. They didn't give any scholarships. You had to pay for everything yourself. Well, I had enough money to go for about a year, and after that I started working, selling Bibles door to door to help offset the cost of school. Right, it was very interesting. And during those summers, I learned that I was good at selling. I mean, really good. The last summer that I worked with Thomas Nelson, I had about 10 students with me, and we sold about $500,000 in Bibles in 3 months, door to door. So we got really good at what we were doing. And so much so that this idea, this dream that I had at 16, when he told me about Masada, I promised myself that if I ever had the chance, that I was going to go there. I had to go there and see this place. But at the time, Israel, in my mind, at 16, was the same place where the pyramids were. Right? There were camels, there were pyramids, there was oil somewhere. I didn't really have an idea of exactly where it was, but I'm going to go there. And I remember my first email address was actually masada40@hotmail.com. Right? This was my first, and I promised myself at 16, before I'm 40, I'm going to this place. Okay? So put that on the shelf for a minute. I started selling Bibles, and I got pretty good, and I realized that I could make more money in sales than I ever could doing anything else that I was going to do in college. So for about 15 years, that dream sat on the shelf. I didn't pursue school, I just worked. And this was making money was the most important thing in my mind. And I can remember, maybe about 15 years ago, I was at Konica Minolta, which is a Fortune 500 company. I was #1 salesperson for the company, made a lot of money, and I wanted to move up. And I went to my boss and I asked him, I said, I'd like to be in management. And he says, well, you're the best salesperson we have in the entire region. I would love nothing more than to promote you. However, you don't have a college degree. And in this industry, in order to be in a management position where you're going to be over other people, you have to have a degree. So I started pursuing other options in my mind. Maybe I should move to another industry. Every time I decided to look at another opportunity or another job, the same thing popped up. You have to have a degree. You have to have a degree. You have to have a degree. And I thought to myself, wow, I've made it this far without a degree. Is this really necessary? Well, it was a way for them to weed you out. So whether or not you had the skills or not, that didn't matter. You needed the paper just to be able to get the ticket to the door. Okay. So I said, well, maybe I need to reinvent myself. What can I do to change me? I like movies. Maybe I could make movies. So I started thinking, okay, I'll go back to school and I'll learn how to be a filmmaker. Right? Then I started doubting that. I'm like, well, what if people don't like what I write? The movies that I make, maybe I should concentrate on something that's got a little more substance, and then I'll do the filmmaking on the side. So I decided to move back home to be closer to my family. My mom had gotten older in age, and she was at the point where she wasn't able to get around as much as she did before, and she wanted to retire. Well, I moved home, and I started working as a headhunter for Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, just in order to get enough money together to be able to take some time off to go back to school. Because in the U.S., school is very expensive. Well, my sister starts talking to me about international relations. You like to travel, right? Why don't you pursue this? So I said, okay. So I applied at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. And again, at this point, it had been 15 years since I'd been in school. I applied, and initially I was rejected. Wow, this is another roadblock. This is another stumbling block. I don't know how I'll be able to overcome this. And I went and spoke with one of the advisors, and she told me, well, maybe you can appeal the decision. I said, okay, I'll go this route. So I wrote a really heartfelt letter explaining that I hadn't been in school in a while, and if they gave me the opportunity, I wouldn't let them down. I promised that I would do my best and I would be the best student. Well, they wrote back and they said, okay, we'll give you a shot. But for the first 2 semesters, you need to maintain at least a 2.0 grade point average. Okay? And you have to take certain remedial courses to, beef up your English, to beef up your math skills. No problem. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do. Well, fast forward to the end of my time at the University of Alabama. I graduated with a summa cum laude grade point average. I was selected as a Fulbright scholar, and I came back here to Israel to teach English in a little village here in the north called Saknim, where I was able to work and meet a lot of people and have a lot of conversations about pluralistic discourse and about this idea of a shared society. When I first heard about Haifa, everybody touted this idea of coexistence. It's not a city for coexistence. But for me, that kind of screamed this idea of toleration. I wanted to find instances here where things were shared, and that was what I found when I came. And it was so remarkable for me because when I went back to school, I didn't realize that I would actually end up in Israel. Initially, I started off, I had to take a foreign language. So they said, well, if you take a foreign language that's not commonly studied, we'll give you additional money for school. So I looked at the list, and we had Farsi, Russian, Mandarin, Arabic. Okay. We had an Arabic teacher on campus. This fit. I'll take one course, and if I do well, I'll take the second course. Well, 6 courses later, I had all A's, and I was offered a scholarship if I would do a study abroad. So I said, okay, what are my options for study abroad? You can go to Jordan, you can go to Morocco, or you can go to Israel. When I saw Israel on that email, it was almost as if a light went on. Because now, it took me back to when I was 16 years old, and this dream that I had, and the idea that, okay, at that point I was 35, 36. I can still do this. It's not too late. I promised I was going to do it before I was 40. Now it's real. Now it's becoming a possibility. One of the things that Herzl mentioned in his book years ago was that if you will it, it's not a dream anymore. If you don't will it, it'll stay a dream forever. But once you put action behind that dream, then it becomes a reality. So for me, I was so dedicated to this idea of changing who I was and changing myself that I jumped in head first. And I said, okay, I'm going to Israel. But I only had enough money, again, to come for about a semester. This was about 3 years ago when I came for the study abroad program. Well, I was so excited. And I remember my first month here, I made a little video about some of my experiences. My first wedding in an Arab village, my first Shabbat dinner, all of these, the first time that I ate falafel, all of that was here, and for me, it was so special. And I showed the video to a couple of people, and I was able to sit down and share some of my experiences with one of the most amazing couples that I've ever met before in my life. And they asked me, how long I was planning to stay, and I told them that, I'm here for right now, and if I can, I'd like to stay the next semester, but again, it's up to God, And I remember in Samira, she was there with me that day, we were sitting there, and the gentleman, he looked at me and he says, well, just let me know what you need for the next semester and we'll cover it. What? See, the road became easy. The path opened up, and everything that I needed in order to make my dream come true, it was almost as if it was laid out before me, and it was effortless. The very next day, me and a friend of mine, Josh, from the University of Denver, we hopped on a bus and went down to Masada. And at 4:45 in the morning, we started the sunrise tour up the snake path. And I can remember as I'm going up this path, it was almost like an allegory of my life. When we started off, there was a large group of us, and we were laughing and having a good time and talking about how great it was, and we were all excited. But then as we went up the mountain and things got a little tougher, the group started to kind of thin out a bit. A lot of people went on ahead, some people fell behind and turned back, and when it got to the toughest parts of the mountain, it was like I was all by myself. And I remember looking around thinking, oh, wow, how am I going to do this? Maybe I need to turn back. Maybe I need to start over and just take the lift up. That'll be a lot easier. But I said, no, I've got to do this. I put myself here. Yeah, it's hard, but we want it to be hard. That's the reason why we're doing it. If it was easy, everybody could do it. If everybody could do it, how special would it be? So it was about that time that a little guy came up, old Jewish guy came up, and he had a bottle of water, and he sat down next to me, and he started talking to me. And he just wanted to give me some encouragement, and he said, listen, the hardest part's already over. You're here. You've done it. He was like, now just go finish. You just got to finish. And I got up, and I started pushing myself. And it took me about an hour and a half, but when I got to the top, I remember my friend Josh, who was already there. He's jumping up and down, and he's screaming, and he's crying, and I'm crying. Because for me, it was a culmination of 16, 17 years of something that was in my mind that finally came to fruition. Not only was I here studying, but I was able to go to this place that gave me the inspiration to come here in the first place. And I can't even imagine what my life would have been like if I wouldn't have taken that path. And even today, I look at where I live. I live at the corner of Balfour and Masada. And I can't make this up. And for me, that is having a commitment to your dream. And not letting anybody steal your dream, and not letting that dream fade away. This is the most important thing. So my admonishment to you all, again, I hope you learned just a little bit about me and why I came here, but for you, I hope you guys can take just a little bit of inspiration from that. And if you have a dream, a purpose in this life is a luxury. Goals, everybody has goals. Goals are a what, but that purpose is the why. The people who know how to do stuff, they get up and they go to work every day for the people that know why that thing needs to be done. So if you guys have a goal or have a purpose, really, or a dream, my admonishment to you is to follow it, and don't let anybody stop you from reaching your goals or your dreams. Okay? Thank you.